Like many people before the arrival of Shadows of Valentia, I played Gaiden, but there was a moment in Chapter 3 where a girl, a unit that you wouldn't expect, did something that would seem impossible and against her class, but she did. A cleric. A cleric girl sat in front of the door and told all those knights and cavaliers, "Come at me, bro," and she ate almost all of them with her Nosferatu, and then looked at the sides, right in his ugly face, and said, "Fuck you," and Nosferatu his ass so hard that it was easy for Cliff and Al to finish him off. That was the moment I realized that Gaiden was far more awesome than people gave it credit for, and also the moment I realized I loved this girl so much, I wanted to keep her in my party forever and ever. And this girl was Silque. I was very impressed with Silque in Gaiden. I already knew her because I had used her character before in many fan art projects, but I never actually sat down and actually dwelled into her character until I started using her in Gaiden. She's really no different than the standard Lena character, kind, benevolent, and willing to help the people who save her. Very standard. But there's just something about Silque that has managed to fascinate people for years since Gaiden was released. Maybe it's her appearance, a very small, meek girl. I always imagined that she was a very brave and adventurous girl who traveled Valencia aiding people and would often get in trouble, and this time you got to save her and decided to join you as a repayment. She becomes a valuable friend in the army and she devotes her skill to aiding you and your cause. When she falls, aka when she dies, she goes, "I'm sorry everyone," as someone who has failed her friends. All simple and mostly speculative, I realize that, but I think that's the beauty of Gaiden and Kaga's characters. It's really not hard to speculate and trace their personalities, because he has laid the work so well for you to do so. So this is the image I made of this violet-haired girl, and I was fascinated by it. I really got to like Silque in my playthrough of Gaiden, and used her a lot until the end, where she was able to become one of my best units, and even solo in maps in Chapter 4. Silque was just awesome, really an adventurous girl as I imagined her. As I mentioned before, she has always managed to capture people's attention even before the release of Shadows of Valentia, to the point she was made a central character in the novelization of the game, where her feelings are explored in depth, and she's even given a brief relationship with Cliff before his kill. It seems people in adaptations do not like Cliff, as he's killed often. I wonder why. But anyway, the point is that she has always been there, as she has always been portrayed as that, this kind, friendly, fearless girl who will do everything in her power to aid you and go with you until the end, because she's just that devout. That's the Silque I got to love. So when I eventually got to play Shadows of Valentia, I can safely say I was already in love with Silque before playing the game. Now, having established all of that, we can go straight to the point of this video. Let me just say, after playing Shadows of Valentia extensively, I have to say I vastly prefer classic Silque over this new interpretation of her character, and I'll explain to you why. Before we start, I have to say, of course, I do not hate the new Silque. She's mostly fine. I think her overly religiousness can get a little annoying to some people, and it does bother me a little bit sometimes, but it's not that bad as she's sincere about it, so I can give it a pass. And her design is good. It's mostly similar to the original, only taller, older, and with a really nice hair color, which I do prefer better, honestly. But that's the only thing I prefer about new Silque over classic Silque. Shadows of Valentia was made by a different team than the one who makes games like Awakening, Fates, and Heroes. They separated the teams because this team likes to apply a more traditional and classical Fire Emblem style to their games, and this Shadows of Valentia is their first experiment on this new ground. However, I have to say they do have many of the negative habits that the other team has. And one of these habits, and personally the one I hate the most, is give the character this unique weird trait and revolve their entire character around it. Granted, this new team at least tries to add some deviations and variations to the character, so it's not that noticeable that they are revolving around this trait. However, you still get to see it, and that is unacceptable. This new Silque is a victim of this, as her entire character revolves around her devotion to Mila, and her backstory is even tailored to this trait. I guess it makes sense given her backstory, and yes, like I said, she's a sincere religious person. However, I do not like it because they took out the elements about the old Silk I really like. Her devotion to her friends and her adventurous nature. They basically changed the focus of her devotions from her friends and allies to a religious icon. And one has to look at their death quotes to realize this. In Gaiden, as I stated before, she says, I am sorry everyone, but in Shadows of Valentia she goes on this creed about Mila and how she's ready to ascend to heaven or something and prays for the safety of her friends. You might think this is exactly the same sentiment, but it really isn't. Let me explain to you. By chanting this prayer, it showcases that Sil's main priority is the well-being of her soul as she dies, placing Mila first and her friends second, which fits her character, yes, but that's not what the original will do. The original Flout states, I am sorry everyone. It's simple? Oh yes. Is it generic? Oh hell yes. But again, it fits her character, that friendly devotion to her friends. Her priority is her friends, not Mila. Original Silk is the kind of person who will run that extra mile with you because she likes you, she's your friend, she will do that to you as a friend, not because Mila asked her to do it. That's what I like about her, and a game that brags so much about being a throwback to the classic and putting so much effort in respecting its source material as much as possible should not have overlooked this simple detail. This is yet another example where more doesn't necessarily equal better. The association people made between her and Cliff also makes sense. Exploring, traveling across the world, it makes sense for them to bond if Silk also had these traits as well. It also helps that classic Cliff is a little bit nicer than new Cliff. But why do I bring this up? Because it shows you that classic Silk does not shy away from interacting with males. Why would she? She's friendly with everyone. The new one has this weird thing about, oh, we have to talk about things only we girls can talk between us, which A, it's an outdated stereotype. It has been proven that both men and women can understand each other's topics really well, and this is actually the ideal thing in an equal society. And B, it just makes her come off as a gossiper. Faye's 100% correct about her. Classic Silk will definitely not do this. So really, what I'm trying to say is that the simpler Silk to me is the better one, because in her simplicity, she feels natural. She comes off as friendlier and more open to her comrades than the newer one does, who has to function as Faye's spare girlfriend or something. Because really, what makes Silk Silk? A kind girl who wants to help people. As simple as that. I suppose it all depends on which one you prefer. One whose primary driving force is a divine being, or one whose driving force is a very human and emotional desire to help her friends and the world. In my case, I prefer the latter, the brave and supportive Silk who will go with you to the pits of hell and use all her skill to help you, and despite being a cleric, never giving up because she has made a promise to you as a friend, as an ally. That is the Silk I like the most. The Silk that, in that moment where she fought all those knights and decides, I can visualize her saying, not Mila judges you, but more like, let's go guys, we can do this, I got your back. Look, I'm 100% aware that I am grinding in the speculation tool with the original, I understand that, but as I pointed out in the beginning, the way Kaga has framed it in Gaiden, it really isn't hard for me to picture classic Silk in that way. And I'm glad to see I wasn't the only one who thought that. The point of this video is not to make you hate the new Silk and worship the old one. There's plenty to like about the new one as well. I'm just telling you why, if you ask me which one of the two I prefer the most, without hesitation I will say the classic one. That's all I want to do. And make you take a second look at Gaiden if you're one of the people who believes that this has no story, this has no soul, no characters. Look again. You'll be surprised. The greatest artists don't need expository dialogue to convey their message. They can convey so much emotion and meaning with just simple details carefully placed in the right spots. A ray of light shining upon your face at the right moment can say a lot about a scene and the message of the movie or game. Or in the case of Gaiden, a little cleric girl who can take down an entire battalion of knights and cavaliers just by herself and nothing but her Nosferatu. And yeah, I have to admit, it does feel nice to say, I liked Silk before it was cool to like her. Sorry. I'm a human after all.